All right, folks, the face-off I'm about to show you is unexpected but amazing. Progressive commentator and host of the Majority Report, Sam Seder, one of the most feared debaters on the left, had a 3v1 debate about Elon Musk's Doge on the most recent episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored, squaring off against Morgan, right-wing podcaster Benny Johnson, and fitness guru and Diet MAGA podcaster Jillian Michaels. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks, when I saw this pop up on my feed yesterday, I'd already done like 7 videos, so I was exhausted, but I'm like, damn, we are definitely covering this the next day, and so we are. I'm going to play this exchange here. It's relatively long. It's probably about 10 minutes. We'll see how much we get through, because Sam Seder is he's a debate powerhouse. He truly is. He scares the shit out of basically every right-wing debater. I'm actually stunned that Benny Johnson had the stones to square off against Sam, but you'll see why, because it's basically a 3v1. The topic is Doge, Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, and Sam Seder brings the fact checks and the receipts.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, let's talk for a moment about the other big thing that's going on, which is this whole Doge stuff with Elon Musk. You, I think, posted that the idea that Doge is in any way about efficiency is absolutely a joke. They're not doing an audit. They're destroying the apparatus of our government. What do you base that on?
Well, audits are done regularly of agencies by inspector generals. The first thing they did was to fire all those inspector generals and not replace them. A. B, audits that lead to firings within a couple of days are obviously not being done. The notion that this is about efficiency when you're laying off thousands of IRS agents, when it is well known that every dollar spent at the IRS returns for the government $6 or $7. You're clearly not talking about efficiency here as measured in any other way other than allowing wealthy people to get away with cheating on their taxes. I mean, I could go on, but there's absolutely no evidence that there's a single audit going on. To the extent that they've saved any money, it has been largely dismissed as clerical errors on their part, and we still have no substantiation about it.
So I just want to say for the record, for example, that big clerical error which went viral was that Doge purported to have terminated an unnecessary and wasteful contract for $8 billion, right? And then it turns out they either made a mistake or deliberately fudged the numbers because it was actually 8 million, orders of magnitude lower. I mean, again, we've been covering this, and so have other progressive and liberal commentators, the many, many, many high-profile failures and fuck-ups of Doge. So Sam's point is well taken. We'll continue.
Errors on their part, and we still have no substantiation about it. So it's
well, hang on. That's not true. I mean, there's some of the stuff that came out about USAID, for example, some of the way that American taxpayers' money was being squandered on ridiculous projects.
Oh, wait a second.
And it wasn't insignificant sums of money.
Wait a second. You can determine that you can have an opinion that it's squandered. I can have an opinion that it's squandered, but it's been appropriated by the Congress. And in America, we have actually both statutory, constitutional, and court cases that say the President of the United States and the executive branch cannot decide unilaterally that they're not going to appropriate money that Congress has appropriated. I mean, the line item video has been found to be unconstitutional. We have the Impoundment Control Act from 1974. We have Train v. New York City from 1974, which is a Supreme Court case which enforces that. What they're doing is fundamentally illegal. I mean, you may think that some of the spending is not worthy. I may think it's not worthy, but that's just not the way our government works.
Okay.
So again, this is really, really important because, again, what you hear is you'll see people appeal to, $100,000 grant here, $1 million grant here. What about this? What about that? This seems wasteful. Maybe it is. Let's just grant you generously the premise because you still lose the debate. The fact of the matter is there's an important constitutional separation of powers principle at play here, which is that Congress, which is supposed to be the necessarily predominant branch over the president and over the Supreme Court, they have the power of the purse, and their power of the purse is greater than to whatever extent the president and the Supreme Court can influence the purse. And so the whole point is, if I say that this is where the money goes, that's where the money goes, I being Congress, and you need to obey it. You get some discretion at some levels about when, where, and how you pay it. But when I say that this thing has to be funded to $100 million, you have to use those $100 million. And what Donald Trump wants to do is basically usurp Congress's predominant power, which is the power of the purse, and drag more power into the executive branch. So again, I like the Sam's not even trying to debate the merits of the purported waste, fraud, and abuse. He's like, listen, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't. There's a process here that Trump is authoritarianly trying to circumvent.
Jillian, you were shaking your head there.
Because it doesn't seem that the government is working. As a layman, when the USAID is exposed in the fashion that it has been, and all of a sudden we have this transparency that we've never had in my lifetime.
None of this stuff was hidden at all. None of this stuff was hidden at all. It's just that
so you're telling me that the average American knew that we were funding friggin' operas for trans people in who knows where?
If the average American was interested in what
USAID
was supporting, they
come
could have
on,
just
man.
gone to
Do
the website.
you really believe that?
Yes,
Do you really believe that people knew this and this was common knowledge? And there's no question that some of this was a slush fund for the CIA.
Well, actually, you know what? The truth is, you can both be right here.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Sam is right that it was there to be found, and Jillian's right that absolutely nobody told the American people about the specifics.
But they made the information available. USAID's basically budget down to the line item was available on government websites. You didn't have to hack the websites. It was public available, public facing. Now, were there press conferences detailing in vivid detail, hey, this is what the money's been spent on? No, but virtually no agency does that under Republicans or Democrats or even under Trump. So, Jillian Jacobs, she's an actress. Jillian Michaels' point here is actually really dumb, which is no one was keeping it secret. It's just that nobody was talking about it, and that there is a fundamental difference there. Americans weren't interested in probing the line item breakdown of the budget of USAID, but it was there, publicly available, and so Sam is right, and she's wrong.
Actually, you can both be right.
What can happen in our process of government?
No, I understand. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying it wasn't there. I'm not saying it wasn't there to be found. But Benny, it was only when Elon Musk and his young team of guys with their sabers got into it, they found this stuff, right, and told people.
They didn't find it. They just they publicized it.
Well, exactly.
And,
that's how the
but
Sam, that's how the American
authority.
Sam, that's how the American people found out about it.
Authority to cut it.
Yes.
So Congress, Republicans control every house of Congress. They control the presidency. They could pass a bill tomorrow saying, we don't want to fund these things. But what's happening when they cut USAID is you've got literally 400,000 meals for children who are technically wasting away. It's in Africa. Maybe my guests don't care about that. But the fact is that they're sitting in warehouses in Rhode Island and in Georgia right now, food that is pre-digested practically because these kids are starving, and it's sitting in warehouses. It's going bad, and they have no way to ship it.
Okay.
Because USAID has been.
So again, great point by Sam, which is, listen, there is a way for Trump to do this the right way, even if we disagree on the spending. He controls the presidency, the legislature, he controls the Supreme Court. He could get this done in 24 hours if he were competent and not authoritarian. Unfortunately, he's incompetent and wildly authoritarian. And also, it's not saving, money in terms of waste, fraud, and abuse, because you're actually creating waste in terms of the food pallets that are sitting on docks and on wharfs rotting away because USAID has been shuttered, even though it already paid for the food. In point of fact, Elon Musk is generating waste, fraud, and potentially abuse. Great point by Sam.
Been shut down.
All right, Benny.
I'm sorry.
Benny?
That's not constitutional or legal.
Okay, Benny.
It's incredible. So I've heard the Constitution thrown around a lot here. All right, let's talk about Article 2 of the Constitution. The executive branch has a clause called the vesting clause. The vesting clause makes one single man that is elected by the whole American people.
I'm just going to say we're going to skip a little bit ahead here because Benny Johnson's really stupid. His point is that the president is elected by the entirety of the United States, and so effectively, if the president has an agenda and he wants to cut federal spending, he should be permitted to do so.
Are appointed judges. There are elected at state and local levels, members of Congress, but only the president is elected by the whole American people. Now, I have a giant map in my studio. I made a man, Donald Trump, to hunt down, waste some American people. What I view as Congress just.
So again, really stupid point from a really stupid person. It doesn't matter that the president is the only figure elected at the national level. That doesn't give him the right or the prerogative to circumvent Congress or the Supreme Court. Again, Congress is supposed to be the necessarily predominant branch, the one that creates federal law, the only branch that can modify the Constitution. And again, how you know Benny Johnson is both a moron and a hypocrite is because we could effortlessly flip this argument against him. In 2020, the American people elected Joe Biden, not Donald Trump, not a Republican. So therefore, Joe Biden was perfectly within his rights to do whatever the fuck he wanted. And you, Benny Johnson, should have shut the fuck up and let him do it, right? Because it's what the people wanted. Anytime a Democratic president, is elected, we could use that argument against you. It's a stupid argument. The fact of the matter is that even when you win elections, Democrats or Republicans, with the popular vote or just the Electoral College vote, you still have to operate within the framework. The president is not a king. The president is not a god. But because of unprincipled, hypocritical losers like Benny Johnson, there's this notion now among MAGA Republicans that, well, when our guy is elected, then he should be given carte blanche to do whatever they want. And when the Democrats elected, well, that's different. Then Democratic or Republican senators and Republican judges, then they should be able to constrain it. It's pathetic and stupid. I digress.
Americans.
Cut food
and
stamps.
So what America voted for was America first, and transgender operas in Chile isn't exactly America first. And to say that USAID was
said a lot of words, but you've said nothing. You haven't addressed the Constitution, the Supreme Court cases, the Impoundment Control Act. None of that. You can say that you don't think it's right to feed starving children in Africa. That's your prerogative.
Can we address the feed starving children?
Donald Trump. I can't believe you're going with the starving children. You're going with the starving children.
No, it does. I mean, it does other things that you don't like.
All right,
But it also does this.
Chaps, allow the lady in the room to speak, please.
USAID money spent.
Chaps, let Jillian have her say.
On feeding starving children or
guys,
in Ukraine in 2014.
Guys, let Jillian speak for a moment. Jillian.
Big fan of
The
Jillian.
feeding starving children thing is such a freaking red herring. So first of all, the vast majority of this USAID bloat and corruption does not go to that. Second of all, we have...
She didn't demonstrate. She had no point during the screed or elsewhere does she show where there's blatant waste, fraud, and abuse from USAID. But even if she's right, here again, this is the whole point. Even if we grant you the premise, let's say that 80% of USAID's entire budget is waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, the 20% or however much goes to feeding children elsewhere, that should be valid, right? Sam's point is 2 points, that there is a constitutional accountable process where you go to Congress about this, number one. And number two, if you're really smart and you be surgical, you can cut the waste, fraud, and abuse without cutting legitimate programs like feeding people and feeding children abroad. And that's where Jillian Michaels misses the point. Even if we grant you the premise, you still lose the argument. You still lose the debate against Sam, because what you're saying is, well, if there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, then it justifies creating more waste and causing children abroad to suffer. No, how about you be smart and surgical and careful and cut the waste, fraud, and abuse and leave the shit that's actually good and valid. This sinks your battleship. It's a really stupid point from a deeply stupid person, but we'll continue.
Listen, it's not my card. It's just simply the reality. And the fascinating thing about
this... It is your card, though.
Piers,
your game is like nobody's empathetic because children are starving.
We are talking about
let him respond,
really
Jillian.
about.
Let him respond.
USAID is a percentage point, like literally less than 1% of the U.S. budget. But because there is this attitude amongst the Well, frankly, it's not just USAID. I don't like them cutting the IRS. I don't like them cutting the EPA. I don't like them cutting Labor Department. I don't like them cutting the National Labor Relations Board. I don't like them cutting the FDA.
Do you like the level of
USDA?
do you like the level of debt your country's in?
I don't think it's as much of a problem as you do, but here we know the debt shot off like a rocket with the Bush tax cuts and then with the Trump tax cuts, and they want to extend those. And so if we want to deal with the debt, and if that's a genuine concern, we can go back to the time in this country where we had the greatest economic expansion during the 50s and the 60s, when we had a top tax marginal rate of 90% of every dollar that would be earned when they actually see the wealth disparity.
Yeah, we've seen
it's
wealth
quite
disparity.
popular.
It looks like a federal government that's $37 trillion in debt, spending money on fraud. Hey, Sam, why don't you answer a quick question?
You can Google it.
This one, we're going to close with this. I was looking for this particular part right here. So Benny Johnson, again, who is considerably dumber than Sam Seder, would lose every debate against Sam Seder, tries to spring a gotcha on Seder, and it doesn't go well.
Why is hey Sam, why don't you answer a quick question for me? Why are the richest counties in all of America the 5 major counties in the DMV right around Washington, D.C.? Can you explain to me, what do those counties do? Are there some mineral deposits there I don't know about? Did they strike oil? Is there some type of rich industry that's created around Washington? Maybe you can answer me that question. Why are those people so filthy rich? You don't seem to like rich people, so maybe explain why.
I can answer that question.
What does D.C.
Do you want me to
make,
answer it?
Sam?
It's lobbyists. It's lobbyists, like all of the ones that have been appointed to Donald Trump's cabinet and to political positions. Rich lobbyists for all sorts of these industries that you supposedly have a problem with. I mean, that's where all the money is being made. It's not being made by federal workers. It's being made by lobbyists. And those are sent by corporations. If you will join me as part of my campaign that you're interested in me running the Democratic Party, in calling for Donald Trump to fire all of the lobbyists he's hired so far, it wouldn't leave many people left in the government. But if you'll join me with that, we can start to chip away at that problem you have with the counties around D.C.
He's so good again. So what just there's a reason it had to be a 3v1, because I think Piers is a smart guy, so I don't want to insult his intelligence. I think he's duplicitous, disingenuous, but the other two are really, really dumb. Room temperature IQ. Great performance by Sam Seder. It's always fun to see him own the cons. Yeah, hopefully he will be back more on Piers Morgan Uncensored. It would be great to see him and Kyle Kalinske on the same panel. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.